What's up, my family? Listen, first-time listener, or you've been here the whole damn time. Hit that like, hit that subscribe, giddy up, let's go, no notes.
That's my baby. That's my baby.
We're going at it at 110%.
I just want 5 minutes of happiness, please. Just give me 5 minutes.
And they scored! They did it!
What the hell was that? Oh, yeah!
What the f*** are you talking about?
All right, everybody, welcome in to Real Talk Fantasy. This is the Real Talk Studios. Jesse King, Mike Everly. I'm Rob Brinkman. As always, hit that like, hit that subscribe, turn those notifications on. Make sure you don't miss a damn thing here for football season on A2D Radio. You can find us on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram. Download us wherever you get your podcast, Spreaker, Spotify, Google Radio, iHeartRadio, Google Play, wherever you get your podcast. Don't miss anything. We're always brought to you by Baggio's Breads, located in Mount Laurel, New Jersey, home of the best stuffed breads, tomato pies, sandwiches, cutlets, and meatballs. Mention A2D Radio for 10% off your in-store purchase. Now open from 9 to 3 on Sundays to better service your Eagles NFL tailgate watch party needs. Big show tonight, week 3, starting to get into the thick of it here in fantasy. Bye weeks are upon us. We're going to talk about trades. We're going to talk about waiver wire targets, and we're going to give you an early look at week 3. Our poll question tonight: is it too early to consider shaking up your roster with a trade? Now, in my opinion, trades in football, way more tricky than basketball or baseball. These season-long, everyday sports. So you got to be a little bit careful. First off, you got to make sure you're getting the best player in a fantasy football trade. I've had bad teams in the past where I've traded the best player to try and get volume or depth, and that never works out. So it's not too early to shake up your roster with a trade, but especially this early, you want to make sure that you're getting the best player in the trade. Don't fall for the 2-for-1 trap volume plays. Acquire studs, give up guys. We'll get into specific players that you should be buying or lowing. But Jesse, to this poll question, is it too early to shake up your roster with a trade?
No, I don't think it's too early. You could constantly be reevaluating your roster and, trying to upgrade your team. I do think it's too early to panic. Right. I think it's too early to say drop Jamar, something drastic like that, just because he hasn't had, the fantasy number 1 wide receiver season that you were hoping for from him. So, yes, you can evaluate trades. Like we said earlier, it's hard to trade in fantasy football. Right. People over-evaluate their players. They always think you're trying to get over on them. It's a real star-oriented fantasy, right? It's not baseball where there's a deep player pool, so it's hard to get stars off of people, especially when they just drafted them, 3 weeks ago. So, no, it's not too early to consider trades. It's definitely too early to panic and drop your first round pick because they haven't put up, the best numbers yet. What do you think, Mike?
I believe in constant roster changing, looking for better players constantly. So me personally, as soon as the draft is over, I'm looking at everybody's team, trying to identify potential trade targets. So no, for me, it's not too early. I'm always trying to churn that bottom of my roster, trying to look at depth charts on other teams, trying to see if I can grab a handcuff somewhere. But I definitely agree with Jesse. This isn't the time to panic, but trading, absolutely, because we're going into week 3 now. You see what a lot of teams are. You see what a lot of teams are doing. They've established their identities, or their identities are becoming established. And you want to start targeting players that, maybe they were overlooked before the season, but now they look like they're going to be integral in the offense, that they're going to become a playmaker. So definitely start looking at potential playmakers, guys that weren't highly touted before the season that have come on. So, yeah.
And then, our waiver wire segment, it's going to be short tonight because, if you're in a deep competitive league like we all are, we're into week 3. So unless there's a big injury, which we did have a few this week, the waiver wire pool is going to be, it's thin. So the best way, even if it's the bottom of your roster, even if it's a bench swap, the best way to rotate your roster around is trades. So do you guys have like a specific formula you look for when you're trying to put together a trade? I know I mentioned at the top of the show, I don't like doing trades where I don't think I'm getting the best player. I try not to do that. I try not to fall in the trap of trading a good player for depth and volume pieces unless there's extenuating circumstances. That's one of the golden rules of mine. Always make sure you're getting the best player, at least in your opinion. Everybody's player evaluations are different.
Yeah, trading is tough in fantasy football, period. Even if you are trying to sacrifice a little and give the other person really the upper hand in the trade, a lot of times they'll just simply ignore it or say no or won't care. Just a few tips. Number one, it's darn near impossible to trade position for the same position, right? So if you really need a wide receiver, you're going to have to try and trade a running back for that wide receiver, or a tight end quarterback for that wide receiver. Rarely are you going to be able to trade wide receiver for wide receiver straight up, or running back for running back straight up. And it makes sense, right? If I'm offering you player A for player B, and you're looking at it, you're like, well, maybe it's close. Maybe I do like that player a little bit more than mine, but so do you. So why would I trade you the player that you want? Why would I not keep them on my team? So you definitely want to look, to trade cross position, right? Running back for wide receiver. Also, you got to text or call your league, whoever you're trying to trade with. It's even more rare to just randomly throw out a trade and have that accepted, right? You need to talk and collaborate and see what they need, see how they evaluate players. You'll be surprised. You might think that there's someone that they simply would not want, but that's actually a player that, swings the deal and sweetens the deal. So number one, you got to go wide receiver for running back or running back for wide receiver. Can't be same position for same position. Number two, you got to pick up that phone or grab the keyboard and reach out to the person directly and try and talk to them and actually talk about the trade and try and work it out. Don't just send out a random trade if you really want a trade to go through.
For me, I'm looking at the other players' rosters. For example, this guy has Eckler and he had Aaron Jones. Well, I have Josh Kelly on my bench, and so basically he came to me and was like, "What do you want for Kelly?" Trying to get Eckler's handcuff, and I knew that I wasn't going to be able to get what I wanted in terms of the better player. But what I did was I looked for underachieving players that had a history of performing well. For example, T. Higgins, prior to this week, I was like, give me T. Higgins and I'll give you Kelly, and you can choose a receiver off my bench. Almost the 2-for-1 that Rob was talking about. But it added a little more value because he was getting a handcuff and he was getting a number 2 receiver. So, I Lockett and Kelly for Higgins. For me, I like that trade. Sadly, he didn't go through with it. He got cold feet at the end. But that's what I'm looking for when I'm trying to churn that roster. Kelly is no value to me, so holding on to him doesn't do me anything. But trying to find somebody that needs a handcuff for a certain player, you could potentially get them to move a little bit better player if you can do that. But I agree with Jesse when it comes to the 1-for-1, the receiver for the receiver. That's almost impossible, especially early in the season. People are tied to their draft picks. So you will have to try and get a cross trade somewhere like, tight end for a running back or something like that.
I will say one thing I really like to do, especially, on my teams that are absolutely terrible and I need to blow them up. I really need to switch it up where I'm willing to give away, my first round pick, to try and get some depth, to fill out, my roster a little bit better, make my roster a little deeper. What I'll do is I'll just put them up for auction. I'll text the entire league and I'm saying, look, I did this last year with Jonathan Taylor when I was finally ready to let him go. I said, look, Jonathan Taylor is leaving my roster before Sunday. Everyone in the league, send me your best offers. Don't just put them on the trade block, but actually text the league, call the league, talk to everyone in your league and let them know I'm taking best offer available. This person's going to be gone. You'll be surprised what kind of offers you get.
All right, what What about guys who are on the trade block, players you're trying to trade because their stock is high and you don't necessarily believe in them over a 14, 15, 16-week period of time? And what players are off to slow starts that you're trying to maybe grab on your roster? One that comes to mind is a running back for the Minnesota Vikings. I still believe in Alexander Mattison. If I can get him cheap, I think game script has really hindered him, especially in week 2 against the Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles aren't messing around with their run defense this year. Those defensive tackles they have in the middle are absolutely monstrous. And those Georgia Bulldogs, Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis, it's going to be tough sledding on the ground, whoever is running the football against the Eagles. But I'm trying to grab Alexander Mattison. I'm in the process of trying to trade for him in multiple leagues. This is a player I talked about in preseason that I loved. I love his running style. I have a futures bet on him to win the rushing title. I still believe in him. I'm trying to that's the kind of player at a position where, we talked about injuries at the running back position in our pre-draft. Like Saquon Barkley is now out if you're living under a rock. Nick Chubb is out for the season. He's not coming back. Aaron Jones missed Sunday's game. Austin Eckler has, I believe, a high ankle sprain. So who knows how long it's going to take him to do that. So if you can steal a guy like Alexander Mattison, who's off to a super slow start, I would do that. He's probably my favorite trade target heading into this, leading up to week 3.
Yeah, I can't say that I'm targeting Madison myself, but that's a great example, Rob, of someone who you could actually probably get because whoever has him didn't spend crazy high draft capital on them. He has, the backfield work. That's all going to be his. So it's just a matter of him performing with the work. That's a really great, attainable person to target. I was going to go with someone who isn't very attainable, but you really want to try and take advantage of people when they panic. Like I said, you shouldn't panic, but if other people are panicking, I might as well just throw 2 names out there. Jamar Chase has not started off great. The sentiment around Cincinnati is down. Joe Burrow has re-aggravated a calf injury. So overall, general sentiment down on Jamar Chase. If there's any way, for 2 or 3, players, I think he's definitely a trade target. I don't know if you're going to be able to pull that off, but definitely reach out to the Chase owner and see if you can grab him. Also, in that same vein, Garrett Wilson. I think Garrett Wilson is an elite wide receiver, no matter who is throwing him the rock. And yes, when I drafted him and when other people drafted him, early second round, maybe early third at the latest, they were expecting, potential 1,400-yard season with the pairing of Garrett Wilson and Aaron Rodgers. But unfortunately, Rodgers is gone. Don't forget, last season, in his rookie year, Garrett Wilson put up 1,100 yards with terrible quarterback play, the likes of Zach Wilson, of Joe Flacco, and of Mike White, right? So he's shown that he can do it no matter who is the guy throwing him the rock. And one thing I will say about a backup quarterback, yeah, they're not great for the overall offense or the overall passing offense, but a lot of times they are very good, if not great, for that number 1 receiving option because they lock onto that receiver or the offense is simplified and they just only target that number 1 receiver. So it's not always a terrible thing for the number 1 receiver to have a backup quarterback. So again, if you can, Jamar Chase and Garrett Wilson, I highly recommend reaching out to their owners and seeing if you can work a deal for them.
Just real quick on Jamar Chase. Go ahead, Mike. Sorry.
No, you go ahead.
All right. So on Jamar Chase, I like that ideology. I would just wait. I would maybe wait till between week 3 and week 4, only because they play on Monday night this week. They're part of the doubleheader with the Eagles, Bucks, Bengals, Rams is the 8:15 slot. So I would wait a week on Jamar Chase just because I don't know. I don't like these primetime games when you're trading for him and then you're kind of boxed into playing him on Monday night. And Joe Burrow, it sounds like he might just miss one game if he even misses a game at all. So, I mean, I think I would wait. I like trying to target Jamar Chase, but just because he's on Monday night, I think I would wait a week on doing that. Hope for another clunker, maybe get him a little bit cheaper.
Yeah, those are all reasons why he might actually be available in trade, right? All kinds of question marks. You got to buy low, kind of like stocks, right? You want to buy when the market's low, when there's question marks all around. Go ahead, Mike. Who do you have?
Yeah, I was going to mention 2 tight ends that I think could be potential trade targets, especially with how the tight end position this year was drafted. I mean, if your name wasn't Kelsey, Kittle, or Andrews, you weren't really highly thought of. First one is Sam Laporta for Detroit. The more he gets infused into that offense, the more I think he becomes Jared Goff's out, other than Amon-Ra St. Brown. I liked him out of Iowa, and as you guys know, Iowa just produces tight ends on a conveyor belt out there. So Sam Laporta, he looked like he was coming on yesterday against the Seahawks. Definitely has good hands, good route running. I love his potential. You can probably get him low right now just because he is a rookie. Nobody really has the name recognition about the guy yet. And the other guy, he may or may not be available as a waiver wire, but Hunter Henry. At this point, Mac Jones has a favorite target. It's Hunter Henry. I mean, he's looking for him, I'd say, half the time he drops back. And Bill O'Brien has made it a point to, get the ball to the tight end. So looking at Hunter Henry as somebody who could potentially become a starter for you. And if he's sitting on somebody's bench as a backup, that'd be perfect opportunity to, throw a flyer out there, see if you can get him on the cheap. So those are the 2 guys I like. And I agree with the Jamar Chase. Honestly, I don't care if he's on prime time. I'm trying to make a deal for him right now. I mean, he hasn't produced. So try and get him on the cheap. You figure he'll come along later in the season, you'll be fine.
Typical Mike. At tight end.
Just to stay in Detroit there, try and trade for Jamar Gibbs. I mean, we talked him up. He was kind of like the darling of, the rookies. You had Bijan Robinson, who looks spectacular down in Atlanta, and then the 12th overall pick was Jahmyr Gibbs. David Montgomery did not finish the game on Sunday against the Seahawks. You talked about Laporta. That's going to give him a tick up. If Montgomery can't stabilize that backfield, look for Jahmyr Gibbs to get an uptick in touches. 8 points and 12 points in the PPR format. Not terrible, but I think this guy is just a time bomb waiting to explode, and he might get even more opportunity than normal if David Montgomery can't go this week. So check in on Jahmyr Gibbs.
It sounds like Montgomery is going to be out for a couple of weeks. There's a couple of reports saying that it's going to be a multi-week recovery for him.
Perfect. Find a panicked owner with Jahmyr Gibbs who maybe overdrafted him and go make yourself a deal. I think Jahmyr Gibbs is a league winner. I really do. I think once we get into the Lions, they always play on Thanksgiving. Once we get in that type of time of the year, I think that's when Jahmyr Gibbs is really going to find his stride in that offense and really start to pop. So I would get in on him on the ground floor.
Yeah, it's all about buying low, right? And the person that you're targeting, if you really have a chance at getting them, has to be someone that makes you feel a little uncomfortable or makes the owner feel a little uncomfortable. I think Justin Fields is a prime example of someone that you should be targeting right now. You don't have to look any further than last season when he started off the first 5 games of the season pretty terribly, to be honest with you. I cut him in multiple leagues myself, and luckily I was able to get him back in a number of leagues because the guy could be a game winner. Well, I don't understand why they're not running him and putting more design runs in the offense. And maybe it's to try and save his health. But for what? You're hindering the player. He can't be the best quarterback that he can be in the NFL if you put handcuffs on him and don't let him run the ball. So I think Justin Fields, whoever owns him, is probably terribly disappointed. All the media and publicity on him is negative. I'm not a big fan of him as a real NFL quarterback. I don't think that he can read through his progressions and find the open receiver. And he's showing that on film. But the man is absolutely electric. I don't think anyone would argue that. He might be the most electric guy with the ball in his hands in the league. So if the league owner out there that has Justin Fields has another backup quarterback, or if you have a backup quarterback, I think that's certainly a target that you could acquire, especially in leagues that are 4-point for passing touchdowns. That's someone you should really be targeting. Even in leagues that are half PPR as well. When you look at the scoring week to week, if you have a running quarterback, a guy that he's one of the only guys that can really put up 40, 50 points in any given week to actually win you that week. So Justin Fields has to be a trade target, if for nothing else than just general overall sentiment and his potential upside. It's only been 2 weeks.
Yeah, I agree with that sentiment. Justin Fields, I have him in 1 or 2 leagues, and I know what he can do when it comes to fantasy. On football field, he leaves a lot to be desired, but definitely reach out and try and see if you can grab him. But if you can't grab him, somebody I like that, he's performed well so far, Matthew Stafford. He looks fully healthy. He's got Puka out there, and Cooper Kupp is on his way back. They rebuilt that offensive line for him. I wouldn't be surprised if Matthew Stafford has a resurgent year. So far, like I said, he's performed well. He's probably not somebody's number one quarterback. And if you're somebody that has like Joe Burrow that could be concerned about the long-term health with his calf and stuff like that, you can go target Matthew Stafford, see if you can, start Stafford for a couple weeks, and maybe he becomes that long-time starter for you this year. Especially, like I said, when Cooper Kupp comes back and they figure out what they're doing with Cam Akers. I guess Kyron Williams will be the back going forward, but he definitely will have the options or definitely have the receiving options to excel.
Yeah, I mean, my God, Cam Akers out there, what a disaster. Looks like he's going to be on a new team in real life, let alone fantasy. I don't know. I know we're getting it's a little off topic. What are we doing with Cam Akers? Mike, you talked about him a lot in preseason. Is he a cut? Do I hold on to him? I listened to you. I drafted him in a couple of leagues.
I have him in a couple of leagues. 2 of the leagues, he is going to be cut this week. The other 2, I'm going to hold on to him. It's just going to come down to, do I have depth? Was I able to pick up Kyron Williams, Jerome Ford, one of those guys? If I was, then Cam Akers is on his way out. I just can't trust the guy. Everybody that listens to me, I'm sorry. I believe in him. So, yeah, he's approaching that area where, like, he may need to be cut. Like I said, in my 2 leagues where I am moving on from him, I'm very deep at running back, and I just need other positions. But let's see where he could potentially traded to a team that's desperate for a running back. I mean, a lot of running backs went down this week. So it is curious to see it, like potential trade partners. Could he end up in the Giants? Could he end up with the Browns? The Chargers, somewhere where he's could be of use and actually shine.
Yeah, and
this will be the. Go ahead, Jesse.
At this point, right? You're holding on to him in the hopes that he gets traded somewhere where he will get number 1 running back work and will actually be utilized. I don't know if that trade's going to happen. I mean, just like we've been talking about, it's tough to trade in fantasy football in season. It's tough to trade in real football in season. These playbooks are very intricate, and they don't have a whole lot of time to get these guys up to speed, right? And they also don't really want to pay a whole bunch of running backs, or pay running backs a whole bunch of money, should I say? So Mike did a great job of listing, a couple potential landing spots. So let's hope. But that is the only reason you'd be holding on to Cam Akers at this point in time.
This will be my last potential buy low candidate, and we'll move on to some sell high candidates or guys that we're just dumping. Go trade for Zay Flowers. I feel like I talk about him every week. Odell Beckham was showing signs of life. Then he leaves the football game with an ankle injury. Mark Andrews, it always seems to be something with Mark Andrews. The running game is a huge question. If the Ravens are going to be able to keep winning, someone's going to have to step up and make plays for him. And I don't think there's any other options on that offense to make a big splash play for them, basically due to health, than Zay Flowers. I mean, he's got a lot of upside, so he might not be cheap, but I believe in the player a lot. I like the situation a lot. So, I mean, I'm trying to get myself as many shares of Zay Flowers as I absolutely can before it's entirely too late to get your hands on him.
So one guy that I think you can sell high on, I kind of disagree with Jesse on this guy, it's Garrett Wilson. I don't like the offense right now. I don't believe in Zach Wilson at all. watching that game Sunday afternoon against the Cowboys, I mean, he was struggling outside of that 68-yard catch and run where it's kind of a blown coverage. Zach Wilson just did not seem to be able to deliver the ball to him. And then he's the best receiver on that Jets team. You'd figure he'd be the number one target, but teams are going to double him at every chance they get. They're going to slide coverage over to him. I do worry about Garrett Wilson in the long term. And, he put up a couple points this week, put up a couple points last week. You might be able to get something for him. I definitely would consider moving on from Garrett Wilson.
I mean, look, like he went up against the Cowboys defense. We just saw the Cowboys shut out Daniel Jones, and the Giants in New York. You got to give him a pass. Zach Wilson a pass for that. They're not going to play, a top tier defense every single game, right? So, and he still performed even against what Mike would call the number one, defense in the league, right? So, I think that's actually an argument for Garrett Wilson, right?
I mean,
it's not going to get any easier for Zach Wilson or Garrett Wilson. I believe they play the Patriots this week. So Bill Belichick seems to be.
But again, I was going to say, I think he performs because he got one pass catch that went 68 yards for a touchdown. You wipe that away. I mean, he just wasn't getting the volume. Zach Wilson either didn't have the time because their offensive line is horrendous. I mean, Rodgers got injured in 4 plays because of that offensive line. Or 2, Zach Wilson just isn't seeing the whole field. And that's why I'm down on Garrett Wilson.
No, I understand. You definitely have to temper expectations, right? You can't expect 1,400 yards like you could with Aaron Rodgers out there, right? He's definitely in that 1,100 yard, range. But you can't take away that one play from him, right? Because that's why I would argue that you should trade for him, or you should definitely be starting him if you have him on your roster. He has that potential, that capability, right? He's that good. He's that elite that he can do it in any game script, no matter who his quarterback is, even if it is just on one big play, right? So that's really the argument. A lot of guys can't do that. A lot of guys need volume, right? Puka Nacua, right? Can you imagine being relevant on 5 targets, or it's 15 targets for him to be fantasy relevant, right? Almost anyone can be relevant with 15 targets, but the true stars, the elite of the elite, that home run potential, play. And I think Garrett Wilson is in that argument.
One guy, I don't know if I'm going to be able to get anything for him, but I'm totally out on Dameon Pierce. I don't know what's going on with Dameon Pierce. I mean, I picked him in the middle of the draft. If I can get something for him, I'll take anything for him right now. There's guys like Brian Robinson that I picked that are studs. There's guys that I'm eyeing up on waiver wires this week. Dameon Pierce, I mean, he's getting all the work and just not producing at all. CJ Stroud is not the problem there. In Houston, 384 yards, looks the part in terms of throwing the football and reading defense for a guy who has only started 2 games in this league. I don't understand it. 15 carries for 30 yards for Dameon Pierce. You get D'Amico Ryans, a tough-minded defensive head coach. He's getting the work. He's not producing. I don't know what's going on. If I can trade, if I can find someone to take it or maybe package him with, maybe a Garrett Wilson, I'm totally into that. But he's on my bench until further notice. And if someone wants to buy low on Dameon Pierce, you can have him. I mean, I just don't understand a guy who's supposedly that talented getting all the work with a rookie quarterback who can't seem to get it done. I mean, it's just 2 yards and fall down. That's been Dameon Pierce over the first 2 weeks.
He's on a bad team, so his touchdown upside's limited, and their offensive line is absolutely terrible. They've had injuries, which have certainly made the offensive line a lot worse than what it could be if they were fully healthy. But I'm pretty sure I saw a stat that goes something like Dameon Pierce had 36 yards after contact last game. So he was hit behind the line in every single one of the carries. And no one's going to produce like that. Only the Saquon Barkleys of the world, will be able to produce high fantasy points and value when they're getting hit behind the line. So that's wrong with Dameon Pierce. It's not just him; it's his situation, right? And that's the problem with with running backs on bad teams behind bad offensive line. Look at your boy Miles Sanders, Rob. He's seeing what it's like from going from arguably the best line in football from the Eagles, now to arguably one of the worst lines in football with the Panthers. So that offensive line makes all of the difference. It's a big reason why I think Jerome Ford is going to be fine out there in Cleveland, right? Even though they lost their right tackle, they still have a great offensive line, and that's going to allow them to run.
Little note on that right tackle they lost. The guy that replaced him, 4th-round rookie, DeJuan Jones out of Ohio State, I liked him better than Paris Johnson, who went in the 1st round. So I'm not worried about all that they lost that right tackle.
He's 6'7", 374, and he was an all-star in basketball and football.
Yeah,
he's got feet. I think they're going to be fine.
Does. Yeah. One guy that I want to sell high, it's Michael Thomas. He's produced first 2 weeks. Sell him while you have the opportunity, because when it starts getting cold, he's going to end up on that IR, milking that contract. Like, I don't believe in him being able to stay healthy all season. He's doing well. He's getting a lot of targets right now. I think you could potentially trade him for, say, Jamar Chase. I would do it in a heartbeat if I was able to do that. Michael Thomas, I just cannot trust that he's going to stay healthy for the remainder of the season. And right now, with him producing so well, I think he's a very obvious sell high target.
Yeah, I mean, if you can sell Michael Thomas for Jamar Chase, you got to go for it. Even I would do that. And then next year, you got to send me an invite to that league, because I definitely.
Last one for me, Kyle Pitts. Get him off. I'm done. Desmond, and it's not Kyle Pitts' fault. Jesse, you articulated it great last week. Desmond Ridder is terrible. They're a run-first team. They're going to get the ball to Algier. Bijan Robinson looks like, he's in fast forward and everyone else is in regular speed out there on the football field. So there's just not enough balls to go around for Kyle Pitts. Drake London might be okay. I'm more confident in Drake London as opposed to Kyle Pitts. But Kyle Pitts, I'd rather start Hunter Henry over Kyle Pitts. And if someone wants to fall into the Kyle Pitts trap that I fall into every freaking year, go ahead, take them. We'll work something out easily. I can't do it with Desmond Ridder. They got to get a quarterback in there for guys like Drake London and Kyle Pitts, who are, in my opinion, super talented for them to be able to reach their potential. It's just not going to happen with Desmond Ridder in there.
So apparently the news was that there's a disconnect between Art Smith and the GM and how the team build. And so I think that philosophy, it's showing on the field in terms of who they should target as opposed to who they didn't target. And Kyle Pitts and Drake London are suffering because of that. That's just in addition to what Jesse's saying, I think that's also a front office and head coach not having the same philosophy, not being on the same page.
I think Arthur Smith is a borderline genius. So if I were management, I think that I would let the coach be the coach and I would shut the hell up and let him run the team. They're 2-0 and you're not even letting him put his fingerprints, on the game plan and do things the way he wants to do. Maybe he has an idea on how to unlock Desmond Ridder. I don't know. Maybe his plan is to put in Taylor Heineke and they're not letting him. I don't know. So that's I did not read that, Mike, but that is great insight. Always a sign for concern when a team hires a head coach for $5, $6, $7 million a year and won't let him run the team the way he wants to run the team. What's the point in having him? Just have the GM do it.
Yeah, luckily Kyle Pitts was going late enough in drafts this season as opposed to seasons past where you can cut him if you really need to. I would certainly recommend benching him if you can and holding on to him. One thing I definitely look at when I evaluate whether I should cut a player or not. Number one, obviously, if you have to, if they're the worst player on your bench and you need to make an ad, go ahead and cut them, right? But the way I evaluate it is, are they going to get added instantly, or are they going to be out there as a free agent after waivers run? I believe, especially going into week 3, I believe if you cut Kyle Pitts, he's going to be added instantly off of waivers. So with that in mind, I would just say if you can bench him, cut a Cam Akers, or a guy further down in your roster before you cut Kyle Pitts, unless you have to. If you have to, okay, that's fine. but I would definitely recommend holding on to him if you can. And hopefully he gets one big splash play, because he's definitely the type that if he catches a deep ball or gets a ball with a little bit of space, he can take it to the house and pump up his trade value. Maybe you could throw him in a trade with another piece, to move up and get a Garrett Wilson, like I'd recommend, or if someone is absolutely crazy and wants to give away, someone like that along those lines.
Let's move on to waiver wire, but first let's hear a special message from our friends at
Royal Billiard and Recreation, proudly celebrating 40 years, and our new, bigger showroom.
Twice the size and twice the fun.
More pool tables by Olhausen, more dartboard sets, including custom reclaimed backboards, more bar and kitchen stools that can change a room,
and more bars including pre-built and custom,
hot tubs, skee ball, shuffleboard, outdoor,
and fun.
Royal Billiard and Recreation, your ultimate game room store. Now located on Bethlehem Pike in Colmar.
There they are, Royal Billiards and Recreation, the coolest place for all your game room and man cave needs. For the last 41 years, this family-owned business has been the premier game room store of the Delaware Valley, stocked with the very best in pool tables, accessories, shuffleboard, card tables, dart supplies, bars, and bar stools. Turn any ordinary room into an extraordinary gaming experience. They have hot tubs, too. Stop by Royal Billiards, 515 Bethlehem Pike, Colmar, PA, where you can visit them online. Website right there, royalbilliards.com. Tell them A2D Radio sent you. They'll take care of you. Really great spot up there in Colmar, PA. All right, let's get into the waiver wire. AKA, this is the Jerome Ford happy hour, right? This is like the Jerome Ford. Unfortunately, if you're living under a rock, Nick Chubb probably spent a first-round pick on him. He's out for the year. Jerome Ford, he was explosive. He was dynamic. He was a great asset for the Cleveland Browns in that Monday night game last week. We talked about their offensive line earlier. Even with injury, it's one of the better offensive lines in the league. I was fairly surprised that I'm in 5 leagues, and I think he was only available in 2 or 3 of them. But if he's out there in your league, put a claim in for him. I have all my budget allocated for Jerome Ford in the leagues that he is available. If you listen to some of our pre-draft stuff, I skimp on the running backs in draft season in order to load up my pass catchers and other skill players. So, this injury, albeit disappointing because Nick Chubb is a great player, but I'm looking to cash in on Jerome Ford. It looks like he has all the tools, and he's in a great situation. I'm spending all my fab on Jerome Ford this week.
Just to touch on that real quick, Jerome Ford was one of my dynasty targets. I loved him coming out. I 100% agree. If you have a budget or you have free agent money to spend, you go all in on Jerome Ford. If you don't have the free agency money, it's by waiver claim, you're not going to get him. He's going number 1. Whoever has the top waiver claim is going to grab him. He's in a good situation, run first offense. He's definitely the number 1 target, and it's not even close. Another target that you can get, Tony Jones Jr. He's down in New Orleans. Alvin Kamara is still suspended. And also Jamal Williams, he's going to be out for a couple weeks. Another running back that went down. I believe Tony came in, he performed admirably. They were able to pull out that win down there, and it looks like he's going to be the lead back going forward, at least until Kamara returns. So if you just need somebody for a week or two, Tony Jones Jr., I wouldn't say blow your budget on him, not like Jerome Ford, but definitely, put a little bit of money in there. He can get you through a week or two. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'm just echoing what Rob and Mike have said before. I think it's a no-brainer for Ford. Number 1, you'll get him from week 3 on, provided he stays healthy. And I don't see them bringing in anyone. Kareem Hunt would make the most sense because obviously he knows the offense. He's been there in Cleveland. But all accounts were that was a messy breakup. So I don't even know if he's on their radar. To bring back.
Jesse, just to give you a little update, Kareem Hunt is actually visiting the Browns today.
Okay,
good. It just came across the news. Yeah.
Good to know. So obviously monitor the news reports to see, if Kareem Hunt gets brought in there, that would obviously cut into Jerome Ford's overall upside. But if you need a running back, got to jump in and try and get him. Don't overthink it. Cleveland has a great run scheme. It's a plug and play. Anyone can go in there and get yards. I would say even Rob, Mike, or myself go in there and get some respectable fantasy points just behind that offensive line and in that run scheme. But monitor the news reports. If Kareem Hunt does go there, that cuts whatever waiver offer or whatever free agent budget offer you were going to throw out there for Jerome Ford in half. All right. Number one. Number two, just in general fantasy advice, let this be a lesson to anyone that's new, and let this be a reminder to any repeat fantasy managers out there. You should be filling your bench with high upside backup running backs, especially in any type of redraft league. Running back is a very injury prone position. I don't think that is rocket science, to understand that. So, because the number ones, are going to get the most work and have a high injury risk, you want those number twos. And it could really save, one, your fantasy season, and two, your free agent budget or your waiver pickup. I was lucky to have Jerome Ford already on my bench in 2 leagues. I don't have Nick Chubb. It doesn't have to be a handcuff. You don't have to have the number one in order to have the number two as your backup. You really should be filling your benches, especially in these deep bench leagues. You should be filling your benches with high upside running back twos, the backup running backs, because they can be league winners.
I already have a bunch of shares of Hunter Henry, but Hunter Henry had another good game on Sunday Night Football against the Miami Dolphins. I talked about it on my Monday show, the cheating Patriots. I mean, the touchdown shouldn't have counted, but it did count. Mac Jones, I've talked about it on every episode. Mac Jones loves this guy in the red zone. Hunter Henry is pretty much a plug-and-play guy if you can get him. I mean, I'm starting Hunter Henry over Kyle Pitts. I have a bunch of teams, and Kyle Pitts is basically my tight end on all of them. So now Hunter Henry is about to be my tight end on all of them. So, I mean, and I feel good about it. I feel like I upgraded my roster by sitting Kyle Pitts until he figures it out, or Arthur Smith figures it out, or the Falcons figure it out, and give a guy like Hunter Henry, who's a red zone darling of Mac Jones, put him in there. I mean, he's a plug-and-play tight end, and I feel like the Patriots' offense isn't getting the love it deserves. I mean, is everybody there? I mean, Kendrick Bourne kind of got Devontae Parker, Jesse's boy, Devontae Parker played on Sunday, and he kind of took the luster of Kendrick Bourne away. So Kendrick Bourne might be a drop, but, I mean, I think Hunter Henry is going to be a season-long factor in New England, and I think he's a better option than Mike Gesicki, their other tight end.
I'm going to stay on the running back train. Matt Breida, back up to Saquon. Saquon's already got an injury history, and, once again, he's injured. Now, there is reports that he may play, but he's on a short week playing against arguably one of the top 2 defenses in the league and the 49ers. I'd be very surprised if he ended up playing that game. But Matt Breida going forward, this could be a spot where he ends up getting 50% of the carries if Saquon comes back. But going forward, I can see Matt Breida getting most of these snaps for the next couple of weeks, especially if it turns out to be a high ankle sprain like some in the Giants organization fear, which is usually a 3 to 4 week recovery. So I think Matt Breida provides some upside, especially if the Giants start righting the ship after their disaster week 1. They didn't start off well week 2. And kudos to the Cardinals for still playing scrappy, even though everybody expects them to tank. But the Giants did come back and have that comeback win. So I can see the Giants moving forward, potentially, picking it up and Breida being featured in that offense.
Yeah, I will say temper your expectations with guys like Breida and with guys like Tony Jones. You're really just, shooting darts, right, and hoping that you get something that sticks to the fan, right? With Tony Jones, whenever there have been issues, running back injuries and stuff in the past, they always seem to give Taysom Hill a lot of work. So he will certainly cut into Tony Jones's carries. So don't expect him to be a workhorse, but you're not going to have to spend the free agent budget money or a high waiver claim on him like a workhorse, right? So he's certainly someone that you can plug in if you need a running back this week, but it will be a 1 week plug in. Alvin Kamara should be back after week 3, right? So week 4, Kamara will be back, even if Jamal Williams is still hurting out there. Matt Breida was in Buffalo for a little bit with Dayball, so he knows the offense. He's been in New York for a little bit. But last season, I want to say, when Saquon went down for maybe a game or two, I do believe it was Brightwell that got a bulk of the running back carries, not Matt Breida. So if you want to put a claim in on both of them just to see who falls to you, I think Brightwell might not be a bad claim there. And definitely, if you own Saquon, pick up his backup. Saquon has had an injury history, a speckled history for sure, but a history of ankle injuries. And if my memory serves me correctly, when he tries to come back quick or plays through these ankle sprains, he's not himself. He's not explosive. So, he's certainly someone you want to monitor. And if you own Saquon, I'm certainly an owner of Saquon in a number of leagues. I want him to rest and come back healthy because I want 100% Saquon out there. I don't want 50% Saquon.
Yeah, especially, they're staying out west. They were in Arizona last week. They're staying out west to play the Niners on Thursday night. It's just, I want, from a fantasy football perspective, I want Saquon Barkley to sit. At least you sit him this game, then he's got 10 days off. Then you see where you're at with him.
The only problem with that, guys, is real quick. Sorry. The only problem with that, guys, is that the Giants are in last place of that division right now. I mean, the rest of the division's undefeated. Yes, it's only 2 games, but they have to start winning games within the division and the conference because they're going to be looking at tiebreakers. Chances are they're probably not going to win the division. So I hear that for fantasy purposes, but for reality purposes, I could see Dayball being like, you know what, we have to push this. We need to start stacking those wins.
Hopefully he doesn't re-injure people. My Alvin Kamara note, I think we covered it pretty well. Tony Jones, I wouldn't spend budget on him. Alvin Kamara was suspended. He's not hurt. So he should be, as long as he's in shape, he should be able to come in and, be a factor on your fantasy football team right away. He's not nursing a hamstring or a quad or a knee sprain, ankle sprain, nothing like that. So Alvin Kamara should be able to hit the ground running. So just be careful on Tony Jones. My last waiver claim on the New York Giants is Jalen Hyatt. I've talked about him a bunch. He was able to catch a deep ball right out of half. I mean, I guess Dable gave a heck of a speech when they were being outscored 60-0 in the first 6 quarters of the season. First thing he did, I can't remember if they changed play callers. Either Dable took it over or Dable gave it up. And their first play was to go right down the field to Jalen Hyatt. This guy was explosive in the SEC. This guy is explosive, period. He's a big play waiting to happen. Wouldn't surprise me for him to get the Giants to be able to work him into the running game some way, somehow, like Zay Flowers in Baltimore, to kind of take the pressure off Daniel Jones. So Jalen Hyatt, that's my last waiver claim of the week. The guys like Kyrian Williams, you've probably missed the boat on, so I'm not even going to talk about him.
My last waiver claim of the week is going to be my boy Jake Ferguson. Talked about him a couple times, and last week he showed out. He got his touchdown. He got a couple targets, and like I said, I just think it's up from here. He's still available in a lot of leagues. Like I said, Dak loves tight ends, and now that it's not torrential downpour, his hands look great. So definitely check out Jake Ferguson if you haven't. If you haven't listened to me, you could have already, but make sure you try and put a waiver claim. You don't have to spend much money on him. I think he could be had for a couple dollars. So, yeah.
Yeah, I don't have any more waiver claims, but I do have one more drop. All the Cowboys. Just drop all it down.
Even that defense?
It's only week 3, and I'm sick of them. Drop them all. Relegate them to the USFL. Get them out of the league.
I know, big merger between the XFL and the USFL, apparently. So there might need more teams, probably.
Yeah, you guys want to talk a little bit about Survivor while we have Mike?
Yes, sir. We are still alive. The Buffalo Bills.
Let's go.
Roll on. I actually haven't really looked at this yet, but.
Well, it looks like the 49ers, the Cowboys, the Jags, those are the big point spreads of the double-digit point spreads of the season of the week. The Dolphins at home, they get the Broncos at home. It's a little bit under a touchdown. That's in consideration. The Bills, well, we don't have the Bills anymore. But if you do have the Bills still alive, they go to Washington. I know the Commanders are 2-0. I don't think that they're the truth at all. The Chiefs host the Bears. They're a 12.5-point favorite against the Bears. I know some people like to save the better teams for the end of the season, but those are also the type of people that don't make it in Survivor to the end of the season. I think you got to play hard each week. So of those guys, like I said, the Cowboys at the Cardinals, the Chiefs home against the Bears, the Jaguars hosting the Texans.
I'm sold on the Niners. I guess I'm going to have to phone a friend for my personal entry. I'm down here in South Carolina with no sports betting. I'm near the North Carolina border, and I don't think they have it either. So keep your phones on, boys. I'm going to need some phone a friend for my Survivor. I'm going to need a phone a friend for my NCAA bets and pro bets.
Well, that's going to have to be Jesse because I'll be over in Germany with nowhere to bet. But I'm all aboard the 49ers. They're going to poleaxe the Giants. I don't think the Giants are ready for what's coming. We saw them play the top defense week 1. It's just going to be a repeat. And especially with Saquon hobbled, you're going to expect Daniel Jones to win that game. Those linebackers for the 49ers are fast. Fred Warner, they play sideline to sideline. I mean, that D-line is going to get after him. He's going to be pressured, running for his life. I think the Niners are going to be an easy win.
The interior of that offensive line for the Giants has been a Achilles heel for them for a decade now, and they have – you mentioned them. They have Hargrave. They have Fred Warner. They have all kinds of animals there on that San Fran defense. Daniel Jones is going to be running for his life. He's going to have to play out of his mind for them to win this game. I'm sold on the Niners.
Little side note. I was going to say just a little side note. The Giants are making a big mistake by leaving Evan Neal out on the right side. He was a natural left tackle at Alabama. He doesn't have the ability to play the right side, but I get that they have Andrew Thomas, an all-pro. The Giants have to do something to move Evan Neal maybe to left guard or something because he just can't be out there. He's not fast enough.
That's our Survivor pick. Our Survivor pick is brought to you by Hats.com. In 2018, Eagles legend Brian Dawkins was inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. To commemorate this moment, B-Dawk designed and launched an exclusive collaboration with Bowman Hat Company, America's oldest hat maker, on Hats.com. Brian's love of hats and the Eagles were on full display in Canton, and now you can find yourself in that same iconic Hall of Fame fedora. Just go to hats.com and search Brian Dawkins. There's the promo code Philly, 15% off. Catch Brian Dawkins on Dawk Talk every other Thursday exclusively here on A2D Radio. Mike, we'll let you get on your plane, have fun in Germany, drink a beer for me for Oktoberfest. I got the beach in the background waiting for me. Jesse, hold down South Philly for us, all right, boy?
Gotcha. I need a lederhosen pick, Mike.
All right, I got you guys. I'll see you.
All right. That'll do it for this edition of Real Talk Fantasy. Good luck in week 3, everyone. We'll be back in week 4. Peace out, everybody.